Edition of Frontier Opening Bell for the week. Thank you, and thank you for joining us on the show. I'm Temple Ashaju. We've got Luke Ofajebe, the team lead at Vetiver Capital Management this morning, and Bosin Amofaye, our executive editor here at Frontier Africa Reports. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on. Let's look at the market status. Nigeria was up 0.53%. The BRVM stock exchange went down by 0.53%, similar margin to that of Nigeria, but in the opposite direction. For the Egyptian stock exchange, that was 1.57%, 157 basis points higher. And the Nairobi stock exchange was down again 0.07%, while the Johannesburg stock exchange went lower by 73 basis points. That's data for Thursday across the markets in Africa. Let's look at the Eastern African headlines, where Kenya's parliament moves to set new law to limit treasury borrowing. DTB's asset base rises 10%, crosses 400 billion Kenyan shilling threshold. StanChart KE, that's StanChart Kenya, has its profit falling by some 34%. You've got Somalia, where IMF grants fresh interim assistance of $0.97 million to that country. Uganda's Ministry of Finance reports a drop in interest rates to 17.4%, and in Rwanda, the Trade Ministry warns against pyramid scheme by Century Heng. Also, help us to understand these headlines coming across from the Eastern African continent.
Okay, I have a little bit of bias for corporate news. So if you look at the banking sector report, the Standard Chartered Bank Kenya report was quite poor, but consistent with the rest of his peers. If you look at ABSA, for example, if you look at ABSA, whose impairment went up by 113%. So Standard Bank, one of the biggest banks in Kenya, the largest banks on the continent of Africa, operating in dozens of African countries under different names and all of that. So Standard Chartered is big. We have Standard Chartered in Nigeria, although not listed on the stock exchange, but you have Standard Chartered listed across the West and Southern African markets, including Botswana and a few others. So this earnings consistent with the negative numbers we're seeing from some of the banks in Kenya. We'll be talking to one of the economists and market analysts from Cote Analytics later tonight on that, to give us some perspectives into the loan provisions and how much hold do the Kenyan banks have on their books for 2020 and moving on to the new year and the macroeconomic backdrop to those numbers. DTB, the Diamond Trust Bank, which is a little more smaller than Standard Chartered, reported a higher asset base, but it looks like every bank within that corridor has been knocked somehow. I think you remember the Somalia story about Somtel IPO, which we had on the show, which was announced a few days ago. Today's Friday, I think between Tuesday and Wednesday, when we had the Somtel in Somalia, reporting that they are notifying the market of that IPO. The telecom is being privatized. $100 per share was the set price, which was announced. And now they're getting a handshake from the World Bank, and that tells you, Temple, look, once you start doing things well, consistently as an economy, investment funds and DFIs will follow you wherever you're going. You just have to be consistent on that path, and that is what we think we're seeing in Somalia. So try to discount some of the negative news about Somalia, about Al-Shabaab and the rest. Focus on the good news. One good news again for Kenya is that the parliament is looking to curb the borrowing powers of the Ministry of Finance. For countries such as Nigeria, I'm sure Luke will agree with me that we need to have such rules in place in which you can borrow, but again, you need to really know you're borrowing responsibly and sustainably, in the manner of speaking. And that needs to happen. There's a bit of a borrowing limit by ways and means with which the government can borrow from the central bank in the Nigeria space. But I love this one in Kenya. Let's see how the parliament pull this through with the treasury, because there are a lot of concerns as well about Kenya's borrowing. And I think that's why the parliament is moving in on that particular front. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bosun. The pyramid scheme thing relating to Rwanda is something that
Oh,
cuts across
yes.
boards, actually. Look, would you like to have a go with that as to what fiscal and monetary authorities can do to prevent that?
Um, Good morning, everyone, once again. So when it comes to issues like these, I think one of the ways the government, maybe the monetary authority or the fiscal authority can address this is by enlightening the masses, letting them know the risk involved in participating in things like this, the risk of losing a significant amount of money, letting them know that returns from from schemes like this are not sustainable. It's just
Yeah,
for
but is that enough, actually? Just creating awareness that this is wrong, this is not to do. Is that enough, or you think we should start putting some policies in place to check?
it's not enough. I mean, it's one of the major things the government needs to address. Secondly, there should be regulations around things like this. You can't just wake up one day and just set up a Ponzi scheme just to exploit vulnerable members of the masses, basically. So there should be strict regulations around this. Secondly, this might not be too related to it, but in a way, it's somewhat connected to Ponzi schemes, really, and that has to do with unemployment rates, standard of living. When disposable income is very low, people start looking for greedy means to make money, basically, and that's why you find that the rate at which Ponzi schemes expand in developing countries is far more than um, the rate at which it does in advanced economies, really. And this is a major factor. It's just, the lack of, basic amenities, low disposable income, just make a large chunk of the masses, greedy, and that's why they seek these alternative measures. So I think if the government can address these things, then I mean it will go a long way to prevent the masses from participating in things like this.
I agree with you. Temple, if you permit me just a second very quickly to add to what Luke said, and I agree with him completely. Look, we need to make financial markets in Africa and financial instruments and all of that a whole lot more appealing to retail investors and not so esoteric. You know, what drives some folks around to Ponzi schemes is because these ones make it very simple. You understand the point? It's not complicated. So a Ponzi scheme is complicated. Nobody's going to come in. It's like a trap for the mouse. You just put some little sweet, nice things, some nice cakes, some sweet fish over there, and they're just coming through. And bam, that's the way it happens. If you make it complicated, nobody's going to come around. So make investment markets in Africa, the central banks across the continent, and I'm using this medium to speak to them. Look, they need to communicate monetary policies, whether it is FX, they need to communicate it in a way to people that everyone can see how they belong in the country. See, the moment you make monetary policy, communicate whatever monetary policy circulars, the moment you make it look as if it's so esoteric, it's only for a few and benefiting only a few, some folks will say, well, you see, we can set up a small shop by the street corner here. Anybody come around and we can make it. Just drop a few pounds, a few dollars, a few naira, a few kwacha, or whatever, and we can double it up for you. And folks will start going there. And suddenly, when it becomes a problem, everybody run back to the monetary authorities and the securities market authorities like you have in Ghana, and say, hey, excuse me, somebody has just robbed me in this corner. Can you help me out? So we need to have an inclusive, you understand? We need to have an inclusive market in which financial markets are democratized in the manner of speaking. Financial assets are democratized. And look at what Fetiva is doing, for example. If you're breaking things down and you're talking to people on every day, everybody listening. But again, as everybody seems to wear some nice suits and whatever, look, make it look like the way Luke is dressed down. Is the guy on the street. I'm not the man on the street, but he looks like the guy on the street. So make it easy for him to say, look, some little of those little extra money he has can go into regulated investment schemes, mind you. Yeah. Regulated investment schemes, and you get them along. We're running the SUSU in Nigeria, for example, for thousands of years or hundreds of years. Very successful. So make it as simple as that. Then you'll be able to nip some of these little crimes, financial misbehavior, across our markets in Africa, we can nip them in the bud, or at least reduce them to the barest minimum.
Thanks a great deal, Bolson. All of that boils back to investors' education, and I think our regulators should do more in that regard. We'll move on now to the Western African headlines, where you've got Dangote fertilizer plants in Lagos test runs rolls out on Monday. Surplus prices offer of $650 million at 7.75% senior notes due 2026. That's out there as well. You got Dangote Cement as well applying to the Securities and Exchange Commission for 300 billion naira bond issuance program. In Ghana, the GSE representing the exchange there has okayed a permanent exemption of taxes and capital gains on listed securities. And in Cote d'Ivoire, they get some 64.28 billion CFA loan to construct floating solar power plants. We've got quite a number of corporate headlines here, and look, I guess you'll be able to help us do the justice to all of them from Dangote to Seplat.
Okay, yeah, so starting with Seplat, I mean, the company is planning to raise a debt facility of about $650 million to finance its existing debts. So we could recall that in 2018, the company raised about $350 million debt for business expansion purposes. So that debt will be due this year, and that's why the company rather is raising another debt to clear that existing debt balance. The positive I see in this transaction is that they are raising this debt at a much lower rate at 7.75%. The last time they raised debt from international Eurobond markets, it was done at the rate of 9.25%. So this is way cheaper. So I think it's just similar to what we are seeing among a number of companies, really. So because of the low yield environments that we have currently, because a number of monetary authorities are trying to keep interest rates low so that companies can have access to cheaper debts in order to finance their constrained business operations amidst the impacts of COVID-19. So given that interest rates will remain low, we'll see more of these transactions going forward. And the same thing applies for Dangote. I mean, Dangote raised some CPs last year, and this year is also planning to raise additional debt of about 300 billion naira in bond issuance. I mean, again, this goes back to companies trying to take advantage of this low yield environment, basically. Then on the second point, where you have Dangote planning to test run its fertilizer plants. So at the start, these fertilizer plants cost Dangote Industries about $2.5 billion. So the plan is to help reduce the burden on fertilizer importation into the country. So we think this will be a major positive for a number of industrial farmers we have in the country, because it will help to reduce, a large demand for FX in order to import these products into the country. Secondly, it will help to reduce shipping costs. So it's not just about the cost of the fertilizer. You also think about shipping costs when you need to import these fertilizer products into the country. So these are the two major positives I see for the agri sector. But it's not like it's enough anyway for us to see sustainable growth in the sector. We also need the fiscal policy to come up with initiatives that will help to support output growth from that sector.
Thank you so much for those analyses. Boston, any contributions?
Yes, of course. The fertilizer team was test run. We saw some of the videos. The workers were cheering. That was good news. Yesterday, President Buhari met with the fertilizers producers and fertilizers, big names within the country. I'm sure everyone is on track, and I love that when I saw Mr. President meeting with them. I think it's good to support some of what the central bank is also doing on the outcome borrowers program. We had to do a whole lot more on the areas of seedling, a whole lot on research, and things like that for the agriculture sector. The Ministry of Agriculture needs to do a whole lot more. Look, I just got news this morning online. Uganda coffee exports has defied COVID-19. That was what the Uganda Coffee Association just published this morning on their Twitter handle. Look, every country is gaming up. East Africa is gaming up on coffee, tea export massively. We need to do something. And fertilizer for Nigeria is one major take. If you look at the hectares of land that we have that are under cultivation or not well cultivated, or the yield that comes from what we try to put as seeds in the ground. So we need a whole lot of this, and this is good news. Another good news was that the Ivorians are putting this money together to build a solar plant facility. Look, go to Abidjan and you can see sustainable power supply 24/7, 7 days a week, and what have you. Look, everybody's going to try to see what they can do. The AFCFTA is here. Everybody has to wake up, and everybody's trying to do whatever you can. You provide more energy, you put it on the table, and you'll be sure that yes, industries will use them.
Thank you very much, Bosin, for those. We move on to the Southern African headlines now. We're in South Africa. Inflation slowed to 2.9% in February. And then the South African Reserve Bank held rates at 3.5%, having completed their Monetary Policy Committee meeting yesterday. Transnet to start operations at the Ngakra liquid bulk terminal by year end. In Zimbabwe, Stanbic Bank in that country reported 1.1 billion Zimbabwean dollars for the full year 2020. You have SA201 maize harvest forecast rise by 4% on good weather. Boson, let me come back to you for that before I get the understanding of Luke regarding the fact that across Africa, central banks are keeping rates unchanged.
Yes, rates are remaining stable, but again, you look at the Stanbic Bank reporting from Zimbabwe. It's the reporting season. Everybody's reporting left, right, and center. But more important for me is the South Africa's 2021. Sorry, there was a typo there. The 2021 maize harvest forecast, which was to rise on good weather. The South Africa has been a little bit fortunate, if you ask me, when it comes to issues around food, by the way. So the drought that was massive in neighboring Zimbabwe did not have much impact in South Africa as it had. Zimbabwe had to get some funding from the ARC, which is the Africa Risk Company, which is the Africa Risk Guarantee and all of that under the African Bank AFDB arrangement and all of that to support the drought season. They've also been spared some of the problems from North Horn of Africa to East Africa regarding the low-cost invasion and problems. So pretty good. Once you take care of food, temple cultural food, you've taken care of a substantial part of the whole issue you've got to deal with. So look, the developed economies in the Western Hemisphere focus on food as the first part of the industrial revolution that they had. And Africa, if we think we can go via the route of developing software and what have you, we're just postponing the evil day, everybody developing software and whatever. Look, you need a whole lot more in food sustainability across the value chain, whether it is livestock, whether it is horticulture, whether it is agriculture, the entire branches of what you call life and living, including what you call agri health in terms of the soap, the cream, the body cream, whatever you use, whatever. Look, it's all about, including toothpaste. Look, you need the whole thing, and the whole resources for this are from Africa in terms of agri, in terms of herbs and every other thing. So I don't get where we're going with everybody just thinking with a laptop or a smartphone, you are good to go. We need, I'm sorry, with due respect to everyone, I don't mind us borrowing those technologies to do this whatever, to do what we need to do. But we can't leave our natural resources alone and let others take advantage of it. Okay? To the end that we are importing those cosmetics, the soaps, the toothpaste and everything, because why? Because the trees, the whatever that produces them are in everybody's backyard in Africa. Hello? I'll go agriculture first, and then technology, I can borrow it and use it later. Then I can do my own technology. I'm sorry for my personal.
This bias this morning from Boson is a serious one. Well, your thoughts on this, Luke, especially the SARB's keeping rates unchanged. I mean, that's the first time this year they've held their fourth meeting and nothing has changed.
I mean, so it's just similar to the trend we've been seeing across a number of countries, both emerging and advanced markets, really. So a number of monetary authorities across these countries are just keeping rates unchanged and also at very low levels in order to spur economic recovery, basically. So the case is not different for that of South Africa. So I mean, you can see inflation even slow down. So clearly, what that means is that consumer demand must have dropped due to lower income, given the fact that a number of people actually lost their jobs during the pandemic. Output from a number of manufacturers has also dropped, even though we started seeing some recoveries lately. So on these notes, you would expect that the monetary authority will want to keep rates unchanged at 3.5%. And I think that might just be the level for the rest of the year in order for economic growth. I mean, we also saw that in Nigeria, the last NPC meeting, which was left unchanged, despite the fact that for some months now we've been seeing like a consistent rise in inflation. Currently, inflation is around 17%. Food inflation is over 20%. But despite that, the Monetary Policy Committee decided to keep rates unchanged at 11.5% in order to actually, speed up economic recovery. So I think that's the same thing that is going on in South Africa for now.
Thank you very much for that, Luke. Let's finish the show this morning for the week with the Northern African headlines here. Abu El Enem assumes position as the chairman of Egypt. You've got Egypt Kuwait Holdings requesting $281.7 million capital raise. Managem Metal sales rises in terms of raises turnover 4% to 4.7 billion dirhams in 2020. You have Ciment du Maroc 2020 net income shrinking by 33.8%, and of course Tunisia's real estate Esukna's turnover is up by 6% to 17.2 million dinars. Bosun.
I'll keep sounding like a broken record. See, keep an eye on your neighbors, even though they are far away in Egypt. Remember this week we've seen the story around Egypt requesting some funding from the government. Okay, then you've had them signing deals with Air Ghana from North Africa to West Africa, and that story is everywhere. Now, yesterday the news came in that the Egypt Air has a new chairman. Look, these guys are going to retool. The authorities are just on ground as far as the economy and market is concerned. Look, I go to the Egyptian Stock Exchange website and you will see that last month, which was February, the Prime Minister of Egypt met with the Egyptian Stock Exchange team, from the chairman to the managing director and the entire team. And the whole idea is to harmonize and bring together market state with the policies of the administration of President Abdul Sisi and what the markets are doing. Look, in Nigeria, we don't have the president or vice presidents talk to the stock market, talk to the securities market. And I think I have a problem with that as a financial journalist. Look, when I saw that news, and we've posted it, that the Prime Minister is meeting with the board and management of the Egyptian Stock Exchange, and I said, oh my God, because the policies of the government at the fiscal level, how are you folks at the equities market transmitting it? What more would you want us to do to support the listed companies? What are the news coming through from the listed companies, and how can we improve the fiscal authority and monetary issues at the government level? When I saw the Prime Minister of Egypt meeting with the Egyptian Stock Exchange authorities, and the pictures, everything is online, and I said, oh my God, when are we going to do this? When are we going to have the president or the vice president come to the trading floor of the stock exchange or go to FMDQ and have a meeting with them and see how, and ask them, how are the policies of the government on the ground? What are the news from investors, portfolio investors? What are they saying on the ground in real terms? And I haven't seen any. I haven't seen any of such meetings, at least that is being reported. But every day you find other kind of people visiting, but I can't see that handshake between the government straight and the market straight. And until we put this meeting together, we're not going anywhere. And I'm sure Luke will agree with me on that.
Luke, any comments? We've got a few minutes to the end of the show, though.
I agree with what Boatin said completely. I mean, I don't really have much to add to that. I mean, that's straight to the point.
Anyways, thank you, gentlemen, for your comments on the show this morning. Thank you for your wonderful analysis. Luke Ofojebe, team lead for equity at Creative Capital Management. Appreciate your time on the program. Bottom of our year of Frontier Africa Reports. Thank you so much for your analysis on the show as well. This has been Frontier Opening Bell, the very last edition for this week. I'm Temple Ashaju. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.